Before I seam my two ends together, I need to pick up stitches along one edge of my hat, and that's going to start the body of the hat. You may wonder, well, how do you figure that out? Well, in my case, I have 23 slip stitch false cables. That means I have 23 repeats of our pattern. So 23, the pattern had 4 stitches. It's a 4-stitch pattern, or 4-row pattern rather. If I go ahead and I multiply, I know that I need to pick up about 92 stitches along that edge. That seems about right. For an adult woman's hat, you're going to have between 92 to, well, close to 100 stitches in worsted weight. In order to make these stitches even, one of the things that I do is I'll fold my brim in half, and I'll take a marker and I'll mark the center of the brim. Then I fold one of the edges in to my marker, and I'll mark that side. That's 1/4 of the stitches. And I'll fold in the other side, and once again put a marker. Now I might not have exactly 23 stitches in each section, but it's going to help me keep my stitch count more even, so that I don't have a whole bunch of stitches at one end of my project and fewer on the other end. So I know that between each marker I'm going to have about 23 stitches. Now this is kind of a long piece. You're not going to be knitting that on a straight needle. You're typically going to be knitting that on a circular needle. This circular needle that I'm using with my needles on, and these are size 8 needles. This is about 24 inches long with the needles. Okay, so make sure your needles are on when you're measuring it, and that's going to be about right to knit my hat. All right, with the hat facing me, and notice I'm still attached to my black ball of yarn. I'm not going to cut that or anything, just leave that attached because we're going to need that as part of the pattern. I'm going to start adding in the gold. Now some knitters like to do this just by picking up stitches with their circular needles. Some people like using a crochet hook. I'm one of those. I'm going to do a little slip knot here on the end just to kind of anchor my gold thread. Just a little slip knot. Again, I can use my circular needles to do this, or I can use a crochet hook. And I'm going along the edge and just picking up stitches as I go. Again, you feel free to do this with a crochet hook, or if you feel more comfortable just using the knitting needle. And I'm just pulling this up, and I see some natural gaps in here. I'm just sticking my needle in the gaps and pulling up a piece of thread or a piece of yarn. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. I also have a size 8 H8 crochet hook. If you don't feel comfortable using a knitting needle, go ahead and switch over and just use a crochet hook to pick up your stitches. Whatever you feel more comfortable with. I'm starting to get close to my first marker. So I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm just going to push those stitches off the end of the crochet hook and pick them up with a knitting needle. Now I'm hoping that I picked up, well, about the right number. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. So let's go ahead and count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Okay, that's all right because we're just averaging here. So right now I have about 19 stitches. I'm going to take my marker off here and continue to pick up stitches. Again, you can do this with a knitting needle if you feel comfortable using a knitting needle. If you don't, you can use a crochet hook, whichever one works best for you. And I'm just looking for kind of little holes here in my project so that I know where to stick my needle and pick up stitches. Don't worry about an exact count at the moment. All of that can be fixed in the next row. And I'm approaching about the halfway point in my project. So I'm going to take this little marker off, pick up another stitch. Now at this point I should have about 46 stitches. So let's go back and count again just to see how we're doing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 30, 2, 4, 6, 8, 40. Right now I have 42 stitches. I'm okay with that. I'm just going to keep picking up stitches to the end of the project.